passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. This month's theme, spicy, chosen by our chapter in Tuscan. The illustration is done by Sophie Matier, so thanks to Sophie for illustrating our theme this month. Creative Mornings is in 223 cities around the world, 67 countries, 27,000 people attend Creative Mornings events every month. All the talks are online and they're all free. All the events are free. They will always be free. And the reason they're free is because of our wonderful sponsors. So please give it up for our sponsors here. Yep. We're going to keep this shit moving so we can get to the panelists, so I'm not going to go through everybody, but Worms or Casey is our presenting sponsor. Stomping Grounds helps us by donating bouquets to our speakers. Tinker Coffee supplies coffee when it's not a PM event. The Airport Tactive and Mayrite Property Co. are all proud sponsors of Creative Mornings. Also, of course, if this slide works, give it up for 45 for hosting this stuff. Incredible space that we're in today. Generously donating this space. This space is also available for private events. If you're really having a good time, reach out to somebody at 45. And thanks to Gang Gang, of course, for all of their collaborations with us over the years and for working hard on this festival. That's right. Please give it up for our team of dedicated volunteers. It's an honor and a privilege to get to work with these folks every month. It's not easy to make these happen every month, and everybody does it out of their kindness of their heart and their love for Indianapolis. So thank you to our Creative Mornings volunteer team. That's right. We're going to keep it moving here today on to our main event. I Made Rock and Roll is an upcoming music festival honoring Black artistry and authorship in rock music. The festival is just a few weeks away, May 18th, American Legion Mall. Make sure that you get your tickets. Tickets are available here today, fee-free. How much is the fee? How much are you saving if you do fee-free?
About $20.
That's a significant amount of money. So get those tickets on the way out. You came to this free event, you should buy a ticket. Also, speaking of free stuff, you got a drink ticket today. Make sure you take care of your bartender. Really important.
Yeah.
Tip them on the way out. Shout out for the guy for hooking up the free drinks today. So, we're just going to get right down to it. Then we're thrilled to have 4 incredible creatives involved in the I Made Rock and Roll on our panel today. Please warmly welcome Hayes Barnes, Ricky Gilliam, Nicole O'Neill, and Rusty Red Rocket on stage today. Also, we're going to have time for some Q&A at the end, so be thinking of some questions.
How we doing, everybody? I actually kind of hate it when people ask again, you know? I think it's kind of corny. Anyways, my name is Hayes. I am the marketing director at Gang Gang and kind of touching a little bit of everything on this festival. I'm kind of sitting on this stage with a bunch of legends, and that feels really, really cool. Before we get into these wonderful people, I just want to say thank you for starting your Friday night with us, because you don't have to be here, on a Friday evening. That's pretty cool that we have this turnout and that y'all came out to learn about this music festival, learn about this history. I can't recall exactly what the manifesto was, but as I was hearing it, all I could think about was Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, the people that started this music, and how that has inspired us to be up on this stage 70 years later, thinking about them and paying homage to them. That's really cool. So that being said, I want to get into this group. If you guys could just start with introducing yourselves, your relation to the festival, but also your relation to music. Start with you, Ricky.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ricky Gilliam. I'm one of the program co-chairs of the I Made Rock and Roll Festival. I've been performing music, probably since I was a teen back in the early 90s, and just had a passion for not just Black music, but just music. And being involved with this campaign, it's just really, it's been an eye-opening experience, but it's really been cool to be able to just educate and tell folks about this history. So I'm excited to be here and look forward to the discussion.
Hello. My name is Nicole O'Neill. I am a co-chair of I Made Rock and Roll as well. I also play in a band called Wife Patrol here in Indianapolis as a bassist and vocalist. And this festival means a lot to me as a Black woman in rock and roll, and just the conversation about diversity in rock, many voices in rock, the visibility in rock, and not only paying homage to those who started it, but also honoring and giving visibility to those who are still here making this music as well.
I'm Russ Johnson, professionally known as Rusty Reinbacher. I've been playing music in some form in this city since I was 19 years old. I'm 53 now. Been about it. I'm about it. I'm always going to be about it. So, yeah, I've been through a lot. You know, Birdman About Traz, Mud Kids, and some bands you may have heard of. My new band's called The Last Four, and I'll be hosting the IMRR Rock and Roll Festival, and I'm proud to be a part of the campaign, and we're going to keep it moving.
Thank you. So, first question, I think this is a good place to start. Why does this festival exist? Why are we here? Why do we need to talk about this?
Well, it's about authorship and reclaiming the property, so to speak. American history has a lot of Black culture entwined in it. And what's happened because of our history, as we all know, some of it racist in the past, it's affected things like this and our ownership of the things that we've created, that we've contributed to American society. And so what this campaign is about, why it's important to me, is we're able to tell or retell the story the right way and let folks know, look, this is what happened, this is how it was created, this is who created it, and it's okay for us to play it and perform it and be involved in it. But it's okay for all of us, because it's an all-inclusive thing, so I think it's very important, and I think it's necessary.
I agree. I think similarly, as Ricky mentioned, you know, we all know American history books leave a lot of things out over time about a lot of different topics, but especially when it comes to the cultural development of America. There were so many groups of people who are just overall important to the American fabric and American society. And so often Black contributions have been left out of that. And when we talk about rock and roll specifically, like I remember when I started playing this kind of music, a lot of people kept saying like, oh, that's weird, and you make that kind of music? Oh, I've never seen a Black person doing that. And it just felt really strange to me, and it made me feel like an outsider. And it wasn't until I started to dig and find like, oh, there have been Black people in rock and roll since its inception. That helped me learn to feel more confident about what I was doing, and feel like I wasn't the only one and I wasn't alone, and meeting other people who also love this kind of music. It was just great to learn that history and be able to share that passion and be a part of a moving legacy instead of feeling like an odd person out of the timeline. It's a part of something that has already been and will continue to grow.
Oh, me. No, I mean, yeah, we've always been a part of it. It started with us, and it's kind of important to at least reclaim that history and tell that truth. You know what I mean? Like, you can go Google, like, how did rock and roll start right now? And you're going to get a bunch of different answers, but the first one's going to be from the BBC, and it's going to be about some shipwreck thing or something that sailors said about the movement of the ocean. You know what I mean? Well, that's the BBC talking to you, and that's kind of the point of this festival. I think is like, you know what I mean? You go a little bit further in your Googles, do your Googles, and you'll see, you know, that then it's going to tell you Alan Freed created the term rock and roll, when people have been saying rock and roll or rock me, roll me in blues songs since the 20s. So it's kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's just making sure that we get back down to the root of it and we talk about all of it, from the name itself to the music itself to the energy of the music itself, which is all started with Black folks. And that's that.
So you kind of talked about if you'll find different answers on the origins of rock and roll. We actually have Nicole up here who has done an incredible job researching for like the last 8 months as we are working on our storytelling. But I would say for many of us at Gang Gang, we've been actively learning. Nicole's been living this for a long time. So I say that to say, Nicole specifically, give us a brief origin story of rock and roll.
Brief origin story.
In your own words.
As Rusty said, there can be a lot of different versions of this, and there's always things that lead from one to one to one, so it's hard to pinpoint one exact thing. But we'll start with one of the answers that was answered earlier, which is when you think about Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Rock and roll's roots are in a lot of different things. It's in blues music, it's in folk music, it's in gospel music, it's in a lot of different things that came together to create music that spoke to what was happening at the time, spoke about things that people were struggling through, things that people were excited and happy about as well, energy. When you look at Sister Rosetta Tharpe, she was a musician who was largely known as a gospel singer before, but she also played electric guitar, and with this energy and vibrancy that really had not been seen in that style of music. And she actually started playing when she was about 4 or 5, and by 6 she was actually touring with her mother, who was a mandolin player and singer, touring the world, touring the country, and they just thought she was this like magical miracle on the guitar. So by the time she started really playing as an adult, like, this woman could play. And I start with her simply because she was a direct influence of Little Richard. He saw her play, and she saw him and was inspired by him and helped teach him to get out on the stage and do what he was doing and be honest about himself. And one of my favorite quotes I found while doing research for this festival was Chuck Berry said once that his entire career was one long Sister Rosetta Tharpe impression. And many musicians cite her as somebody who inspired them, as the way that they play guitar, the energy that they have. And that moves to a lot of different things. We started there, but you pull in blues artists like John Lee Hooker, blues artists like Muddy Waters. Rolling Stones named themselves after a Muddy Waters song. So a lot of these pieces all kind of came together to create this energy that was then called rhythm and blues and then became rock and roll.
Yeah.
This record.
Rhythm and blues is the evolution of
Go ahead and
records.
share something, Rusty. There are more people who can talk about this story.
Thank you, Nicole, for that. Shout out one time for Nicole, because that was a lot of information just off the top. So for Ricky and Rusty, if black people started rock and roll, what happened after it started, and why, generally speaking, not for everybody, but collectively, there is a wide association with the genre? What happened in, after the 50s or in the mid 50s?
Well, it got appropriated, like a lot of things did. And back then, a lot of black artists weren't allowed to really capitalize off of their art. They weren't able to get that compensation or that recognition for it. And they would put these white artists with white faces on it, like you would have Little Richard sing Tutti Frutti, but then you got Pat Boone covering it, and it shoots to the top of the charts. And he ends up being the one getting compensated, and some other folks, and Little Richard gets very little. And so that happened with not just in music, in a lot of art forms and a lot of things that have been, like I said earlier, incorporated in American culture. The credit is kind of stolen. And then the folks in power are able to capitalize and get rich and have these good lives, and then the people that actually created it are kind of suffering. And you see them as they get older, they're trying to get their rights back, they're trying to get their master recordings and things like that. So, yeah, that's what happened. They jacked it from us.
Yeah, that's essentially it. Cover versions and appropriation, basically. And just, for lack of a better term, whitewashing the music for a mainstream audience. So, the records, like, people thought these records were disgusting, Tutti Frutti and these kind of records. They thought they were a little too much. Like I said earlier, they were called race records at one point, before they decided to call them R&B. So, you put white face on and stuff, and I mean, it still happens now. You know, it's nothing new. That's just kind of what happened, and then eventually, I think what black people do is always, okay, well, y'all got this, can't get this though. We start coming with new stuff. You know, so here comes funk, here comes hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Here comes jazz rock. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're always gonna, you know, there's always gonna be something that, you know, and then you're welcome to come get a piece of this too. You know what I mean? But like, don't leave us out of the mix. You know? And I think with rock and roll, it just got, you know, especially like once Beatlemania took over, then everybody wanted to sound like the Beatles. But what people don't realize about the Beatles is originally they wanted to sound like black artists.
That's right.
They toured with Little Richard.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know what I mean? And they honored and respected, like Love Chuck Berry and Little Richard. Those are the records, you know, the kind of records they were wanting to make. And eventually they became the Beatles. You know what I'm saying? You can't take anything away from that. Don't get me wrong, but you know what I mean? Like, that's just what happens, you know?
What's interesting is you still see it happening today, because black culture is loved all over the world. I mean, let's just be real. You see it in Germany and Japan and all these places, and I think of like these K-pop groups now, and all their choreography is jacked from like Michael Jackson. If you watch it, it's like Michael Jackson choreography, and they're capitalizing off of it, you know, but it's not really credited where they're getting it. They're just emulating. And we're emulated all around the world, but, you know, our stuff is emulated, but we're not always accepted as easy as our culture.
I mean, but even Mike went through it, you know what I mean? You had the Osmonds. You know what I mean? Like you got the Osmonds coming around on the name of the Jacksons. The new edition comes out, you got new kids on the block.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's always gonna happen. Like, we come up with something nice, there's gonna be somebody who grabs onto it, and that's cool. You're welcome to get a part of it, but please don't leave us out of the mix. You know, and don't act like we weren't architects and creators.
When we talk about even specific dates, one of the ones we always talk about, 1951 is when Rocket 88 was released.
No! That was my free ticket question.
Oh, sorry. You asked
Here's
for
the question real quick.
Sorry.
Who did Rocket 88? Who performed it? The very first time. Does anybody know that?
He's a bad person.
Yeah. Associated with Tina Turner. Yeah, too late now. You're not getting the ticket. I gave you the clue. Sorry. Keep going back to 1951. Rocket 88.
Back to 1951, Rocket 88. So Rocket 88 is released. It was recorded at the Memphis Recording Company, I believe the name was. But it was recorded by Sam Phillips, and you'll know Sam Phillips in a few minutes. But Sam Phillips records this song. He actually grew up picking cotton next to black people and had a big respect for blues music, and records this song, is recording this music, but he's not making any money off of it. He sells Rocket 88 to Chess Records in Chicago. That song becomes a hit, and built off of that hit, he built Sun Studios, which is where Elvis Presley recorded. And he specifically wanted to find a white artist who sounded like what he thought black music sounded like, so he could make money off of it. So when we talk about like whitewashing, it's deliberate. This doesn't happen by accident. He said, I want to make money off of this, and the masses are gonna buy white music. They're not gonna buy black music. I want to find white people who are gonna sing black music. So Elvis was one of those. Elvis first came around, he was playing some tunes, and he's okay. But then he sang That's All Right Mama, which is an Arthur Big Boy Crudup song, a black artist. And that was a moment that Sam Phillips paid attention to him, and then started recording other music. We mentioned the Beatles coming here. One of the most famous early Beatles songs that they sang was Twist and Shout. They specifically sang the version that was covered by the Isley Brothers. Isley Brothers are from Ohio. Isley Brothers is a black band. They also wrote another song that we all know that's always going to be played at weddings, at parties, as a rock and roll staple. Does anybody know what song that is? Shout. The song was written by the Isley Brothers. So these were all songs that the British invasion groups came over here singing. They were super excited about. But because of racism and race records and racism on the radio stations, many white people did not know that these were already American songs that existed in our culture. So it got turned around to like, these are the people and this is the face of this music. And that's how these things happen. I think it's important to talk about that history because often when it does get washed over, it's as if it happened by accident or it just happened to, just people just heard this and were inspired. And people are allowed to be inspired and share things, but when we forget to give credit to what came before it, then those stories get washed away.
It's actually interesting too, building off of Rocket 88. Rocket 88 is, looking back, posthumously recognized as the first ever rock and roll song. But it wasn't the first that was recognized by the Billboard charts. That came 2 years later, and it was by Bill Haley, who was a white man, kind of like covering a lot of black music before Elvis was, right? So like literally, to your point, Nicole, was deliberate. It was systemic, it was intentional. I think the Sam Phillips quote was, if I can find a white man who sings with the Negro feel, I'll make $1 million, right? Like that is one of his most famous quotes of all time. That being said, I kind of want to give us another opportunity to maybe get some tickets. I'll do it maybe an easier one. So one of Elvis's hit songs is called Hound Dog. That was actually a cover. Who did the original song?
Big Mama Thornton.
Big Mama Thornton. Who got that one? Okay, we'll make sure you get a ticket. Cool. So we've talked a lot about kind of the origins, like those first 30 years from the 30s to the 50s and 60s. What musicians are you recognizing kind of after that the black people that stayed in rock and roll and that carried that torch forward? Can we talk about their impact and their legacy now kind of out of a genre that is being recognized as being theirs, but continuing to carry that torch forward?
Jimi Hendrix is the greatest guitarist who ever lived, ever will live, and he will always be the greatest guitarist who ever lived. So let's start there. Jimi Hendrix is extremely important in terms of rock and roll and rock music. Only made 3 albums while he was alive, 4 if you include the live one, and they're all absolutely iconic and legendary. Changed the way people approach the electric guitar, changed the way you recorded it in the studio, changed the way you release music. He's everything. So Jimi Hendrix is an absolute icon, and I just wanted to get that out before anybody took it from me.
If we move over from Jimi Hendrix, right directly tied, we can't talk about rock and roll and black people in the 70s without talking about Betty Davis. And no, not the white actress Betty Davis. Black singer Betty Davis, who was actually friends with Jimi Hendrix. She introduced Jimi Hendrix to her then husband, Miles Davis, who was inspired by his music for his next album. But the thing that I found really unique about reading about Betty Davis's work, she's not widely known as a rock artist, but her influence is really in her rock singing. She was not really singing in the way that many black women were known to be singing at the time. Like we had Aretha Franklin and Patti LaBelle and voices like that at the time, but Betty Davis's voice was like raw and scratchy. She did a lot of shouting and hollering. And that was something that people really hadn't heard before and didn't really know how to classify and what to do with. But in that way, it opened a door for different sounds, different styles, different music, different ways of expressing yourself, and that kicked open a really wide open door. You see that influence even in the way that Tina Turner reinvented her career into a more rock and roll style later in the 80s, had a lot of that energy and flair to it as well.
I have a couple. Michael Jackson first, and I call him my king of rock. Because, well, I'm from Gary, Indiana, first of all, so I have some ties to it. But I don't think there's an artist ever, and probably ever will be bigger than Michael Jackson was. And I think as a child, when the Thriller album came out, and I heard Beat It, and that rock guitar, Eddie Van Halen playing behind him. And I heard that, I was like, wow, this brother's playing rock music. And I hadn't heard that before as a kid. I was probably 7 or 8 then. But fast forward, Prince. I'm a huge Prince fan. If y'all notice when I walked on stage, I'm kind of short. He was impressionable. It's like, y'all just go along with the story. All right, I was about 14 or 15. It was 1991. And there was this girl that I liked. And coincidentally, her mother was our choir director, and we used to have rehearsal at their house. So we were over the house, waiting for rehearsal to start, and this song came on the radio called Insatiable. Now it's a slow jam by Prince. It's an R&B slow jam. And I heard this song, and I'm looking over across the room with this girl that I like. And I'm listening to the song, and I'm looking at this girl, and I'm 14. My hormones, it was doing something to me. It's like, this shit, excuse me, this is sexy. Delete that. This is sexy. So I got home, and I got on my bike the next day, and we had this grocery store in the neighborhood where there was a guy that sold bootleg cassette tapes. And I said, hey, man. Sorry. He was a brother, so he was just getting our stuff back. That's all. So I ride up to the store and say, hey, man, do you have any Prince tapes? Does he have like the new album out or something? So he pulls out this cassette, bootleg, Diamonds and Pearls. So I run home and I pop this tape in. And the song that I was looking for is the next to last song on the album. So I had to listen to the whole album, flip the tape over to get to that song that I heard on the radio.
See, hold on, if you'd been about it, you would have known you could listen to like the first 2 songs, flip the tape. It would have been where you would need.
Well, I didn't know the name of the song.
Trying to look at. Oh, it was a bootleg cassette.
Well,
My bad.
It had the right name. But what happened was, as I was looking for that song, I discovered these other songs that he did, and they had rock influences in them. I said, and all of them were different. So it sent me on this journey listening to Prince music. And I started buying his albums and listening and listening and listening. This dude is pretty dope. And he's a rock star. And he's playing music that most black artists at the time wasn't playing. New Jack Swing was out there during that time and all that. And I thought, you know, and it just resonated with me because I was a short brother. I was trying to figure out my way around the girls and stuff in high school, and he was kind of helping me with that. And I was like, man, this is pretty cool, but I felt weird because I was like the only one listening to Prince at that time. And folks were like, why are you listening to him? You know, they listened to hip hop and rap. NWA was popular then. We should have been listening to him as a teenager, but I was. But as I got older, and as Prince started to mature in the music business, as you all know, he started advocating for ownership. Yeah. And he had this big battle with the record companies in the mid-90s where he was trying to regain ownership of his master recordings because he saw the value in it. And he said when he was young and he signed that contract back in 1977, he didn't know. And a lot of artists were wrapped up in that same thing. I remember George Clinton talking about he don't own his music. As an 80-something-year-old man, he still got to perform to make a living because he don't own the rights to his music. And Prince was one of the first advocates for folks to start paying attention to their contracts, start paying attention to ownership of your music. He cut out the record label altogether. He was one of the first to go straight computer, website to consumer.
Shout out to Terrence Trent D'Arby, who also was one of the first people to do that.
And so that
left a huge record. That dude sold 10 million records, you know what I'm saying? And then the second record, they didn't want to push it right, and he was like, you know what, that's cool, I'm just going to finish this out. And then he moved over to Italy and started doing his music online exclusively, like way early.
So if you look at Spotify and Apple Music and all that, real talk, we pioneered that too. All right, I'm done.
All of it! Claiming all of it.
It's great though that you mentioned Prince, the video that they put out this week about things you'll learn. I mentioned that there are 3 Midwestern black artists in rock that you'll learn about. We already talked about the Isley Brothers from Cincinnati, Ohio. Prince is from Minnesota, another Midwestern black artist in rock. And specifically those 2 I think about all the time because there's this really great clip, if you find it ever on YouTube, it floats around Instagram, it's all the places, but there's this interview with David Bowie. He's talking with a guy from MTV, and this is in the early days of MTV. And he says, I noticed that you don't play a lot of black artists on MTV. What's that about? And this guy just tries to do that thing where they just try to intellectualize a response and sound really important. And he says, well, people like us, I live in New York, and we're very open. We listen to, but we have to think about people in the Midwest. Because the Midwest always seems to be what Hollywood and the entertainment industry thinks is just like flat, and it's white, it's very not very progressive. That's the kind of thought of what the Midwest is. And we all know, look at this room in here. There's so much more. There's more than Corna, Indiana, guys. But you just see David Bowie's face as this guy is talking. He goes, you have to think about people in the Midwest who may not want to be ready to hear someone like the Isley Brothers or Prince. And I'm like, those are both Midwestern bands. Those are Midwestern people, longtime lifers in the Midwest. So there's so much more to offer. And as we talk about kind of bands in this area, we can't not talk about Death, which is a great proto-punk band, early 70s from Detroit, Michigan. Band of brothers. Their music was almost forgotten until really the 2000s when it was rediscovered. A documentary was released called A Band Called Death. I highly recommend you watch it if you can. But once again, before punk had broke, as they say, punk broke, there was already a black band making this music in the Midwest, and I think that's just so absolutely awesome and cool. And they're still making music today, so we're out here.
And circling back to punk rock, Bad Brains. Absolutely mandatory, necessary band. You must listen to them. Please give them a chance immediately. They changed the way punk rock was recorded and listened to and written. They're everything. They're every punk band's favorite punk band. So Bad Brains, 4 black dudes from DC, really making great noise.
So we've talked a lot about history. I want to talk about y'all's experiences as well. You guys all kind of have your own experience, came up in different eras, but have also been either in rock music or adjacent to rock music for a while. What is it like being in the rock genre while black, while in the Midwest? Tell me about what that experience is like, and Rusty's got something to say. I think Rusty's got something.
Well, no, it's not that I have so much to say, it's just that I've been doing it so long, I just remember a lot. There were clubs that I was not, that I was warned not to go and play with these guys. Don't do it. Don't go to that club. They're not gonna dig you there, and I don't know if the crowd is gonna really even appreciate you being there, type stuff. Like literal segregation vibes, you know what I mean? I did that, you know what I mean? In the early 90s, it was still like that. And it might still be like that in some places now. I don't know. I just always fought through it and never worried about it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm gonna go up here and do my thing regardless, and I have to be fearless. I can't be self-conscious, I can't be worried about it. You know what I mean? But it is me. And that's that. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear any crazy stuff. Anybody calls me any kind of names or something, well, we're all gonna have problems. And I was always with bands that, you know what I'm saying, the bands that I worked with, they did have my back, so it was never a problem. But I toured, I toured the Pacific Northwest in 95. So we were playing in Utah and shit up, you know what I mean? Places I would never go. I slept in Yellowstone, you know what I mean? We slept in Yellowstone because we didn't have money for our hotels. You know what I'm saying? And I'm out here playing for these people. Yeah, okay. It was great. I'm gonna let you know. It actually was not a problem. I didn't have a lot of problems, but it was definitely weird, and I was definitely warned. In the city and in other cities. I toured Florida for a month. Better believe there were places they didn't want to see me, but they had to deal with me. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, I guess part of my rock and roll spirit was just I'm doing this. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not harming anybody, I'm not hurting anyone, I'm just gonna get up here and give you the best show I can and speak my mind, and I'm the idiot who got in a stupid van and drove down here 12 hours to do this. So give me a break. That's how I always approached it. So that's always been my approach. I'm always going to give you the best I got, you know what I'm saying? And it's not going to be an issue. If you have an issue with me, it has nothing to do with me. You know what I'm saying? I really am fucking great at this.
Nicole?
No apologies necessary. For me, my journey, I didn't start playing in like a regularly functioning rock band. I say regularly functioning because there was a time in Bloomington that I played in a band on Sundays with two other guys who had nothing to do on Sundays. And we recorded the Nevermind album over again because he didn't like the way it was originally recorded. And then we just never did anything with it. So I joined the band I'm in now, Wife Patrol, in my late 20s because it took that long to really find other people to make music with, in my experience. I've always been someone who loved music. I started playing music as early as I could in school band, and I started playing the bass guitar when I was in high school. And it was interesting to me that when I went off to college and finally got to be involved in the music scene, I went to IU in Bloomington. Everybody who's ever lived in Bloomington knows there's a lot of music in Bloomington, and I would go to shows all the time, and often I was like the only person at the basement shows, listening to all the punk rock bands. And I remember coming back to, I grew up in Fort Wayne, going to Fort Wayne, and I'd run into people I went to high school with, and they're like, oh, I heard you're like into music now. And I was like, I was in the pep band and the jazz band and the regular, like we were all in band. I was in all the bands. I was a band kid. I was in music the entire time. Why is it now that I'm suddenly into music? And I realized that they still had never really associated me with rock music. They knew I played music and I could talk to some people about the music I listened to, but mostly I would be talking and people would just kind of imagine whatever version of music they thought I was talking about for whatever reason. I remember running into some older musicians at a show and I said, yeah, I play bass. And they're like, oh, cool, we could use somebody in our band. We play a lot of Adele songs. It's like, I mean, that's cool, but that's not what I'm doing. You know, and there was often just this lack of understanding that like they could associate me, a black person, with rock and roll music. And so being able to finally start playing and doing that, especially as an older person who was more confident in myself, was a really empowering experience for me, both as a black person and as a woman, because rock is not always a very safe and open space for women as well. So that was kind of my journey, is growing up hearing all this kind of like, oh, that's weird, that's what you're into, or what are you doing here? Kind of having to explain myself in spaces because I didn't seem to fit what people thought I should be doing or listening to or where I should be. And now I get to just get on stage and surprise people and they'll say things like, oh, you have a really nice voice. And I'm like, I know, thank you.
Wow. For me, I consider myself unapologetically black. And what I mean by that is I'm not afraid to embrace my culture and myself in whatever space I'm in. Especially the older I get, I'm like, this is who I am, this is my people, this is what we do. And if you like it, cool. If it ain't your thing, cool. And I'm not gonna worry about it. So with that being said, as I was coming up, I was a lover of all types of music. My parents were baby boomers, so I grew up listening to Motown, the oldies, but we also came out of a conservative-ish church. So I listened to hymns, I listened to all that type of stuff. I like Mozart. One of my favorite movies is Amadeus. And just appreciating the genius of Mozart. And growing up, I learned piano and I played violin very briefly. I played saxophone and I picked up guitar. I like a cappella, if anyone knows who Take Six is. I love Take Six and a cappella and those layered harmonies. So I just grew into this lover of music. And so in the band or bands that I played in, and even in my current band, even though we do covers, I always try to introduce music that I like, regardless of the genre. So we may play some rock, we may play some pop. We may play whatever, but I play them around audiences that look like me unapologetically. So we may play something that a normal black audience, you may say, well, we assume they only want to hear R&B and funk and all that. That's all we know. But no, we're complicated and complex people. We like all kinds of stuff. We like the same stuff y'all like. We ain't different. We just a little browner. But we still like the same stuff. And so I think sometimes we put these labels on folk that you can only like this. You can only like this. You can only like this. No, you like what you like. And be cool with that. Enjoy that. And don't be ashamed about it. This is your life, and whatever made you smile, allow that thing to make you smile. Don't impose on folk. And just be happy. And that's what I do in my music and in my performance. And that's what I say you all do. Enjoy whatever it is that you like, and don't be ashamed about it. All right.
So I want to kind of pivot and talk about the festival, because I think what Ricky just said is like kind of exactly what we're going for with this festival and the feeling we're trying to create. I want to know from y'all's perspective, well actually first of all, how many of y'all are planning to go to the festival on May 18th, American Legion Mall? That's not enough hands. Now, how many of y'all got your tickets for May? That's not enough hands. Ticket prices go up on April 30th at 11:59. So let's lock those in. But no, I want to know from y'all's perspective, like, what are you looking forward to just being in that space, right? We've got like 10 hours dedicated to exactly what we're talking about. It's never happened in this context and narrative before. What are you looking forward to?
Access to the good bathrooms. Upgrade those tickets. Seriously though, just the gumbo of people that's going to be out there just having fun together, enjoying something together. That's just going to be a cool sight, just a sea of folk just there for the same purpose, to enjoy some good music, hopefully learn something about the history of rock and roll at the same time, and just having a good time together. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, what I like about the festival is that it's just giving people the opportunity to learn something about it. You know what I mean? There's been so many events and shows and talks and roundtables and stuff, social media campaigns. Like, it's been a great campaign. So I think what I'm most excited about when it comes to the festival itself is just actually seeing it happen. You know what I mean? Because I know how hard you guys have worked. And I know how hard I've worked with you guys, and I think it's going to be flipping great. I'm looking forward to seeing all of them, you know what I mean? I'm looking forward to seeing Robert Randolph for sure. That's, I think, who I'm most excited to see. I saw him at Birdie's probably about 13 years ago, man. And my buddy, at this time, there's this band called Mofro, JJ Gray and Mofro. Is anybody familiar with them? Like years and years ago, they opened for the Mud Kids. You know what I'm saying? And then now they're, touring and they do their own thing. They sell out the Bow, wherever the hell else they play. They played the Murat, I think, last time they were here. But they came and opened for my little rap band. And we got to be cool, and I've been cool with JJ ever since. And like, that dude was like, man, you gotta go see Robert Randolph if he comes to your town, man. I swear to God, you're gonna love him. He's amazing. They do this Sacred Steel thing, man. It's church music, but it's rock and roll. You're gonna love it, man. You ain't never seen nothing like it. And I caught him at Birdie's, and it was absolutely one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. So I'm really looking forward to Robert Randolph and just the whole show in general, man. Draco's gonna kill it. Inner Peace is gonna be crazy. You know what I mean? It's just gonna be a great day out there.
I'm really looking forward to just, again, the whole experience and vibe, but also just being able to showcase like how widespread and varied rock and roll music is. We have everything from Inner Peace, a hardcore band. We've got Robert Randolph was mentioned with this more Sacred Steel gospel style sound. We've got Gary Clark Jr. with the rock and somewhat blues sound. Like we've got Meet Me at the Altar with the more pop punk stuff. So there's just something for everybody, whether it's your first time exploring rock music or you've been a diehard fan. Like there's something for everybody to come and check out and experience something new, experience something great. So I'm really excited to just see that variety. I also am really excited that it's, there's going to be men, women, non-binary people all represented on stage this day, which I think is super important because again, rock and roll is not one thing, the sound is not one thing, and it's just great to see so much variety and diversity on stage.
We're gonna now open it up for QA from the crowd. So, Ryan, are you running mics?
Yeah, I'll run.
Do you need one? Here, you can take this.
All right. We still got one more ticket to give away, don't we?
We do, yeah.
Ooh, who's got a really good
Promise not to
question?
give away the answer.
You pick the people.
Oh.
Pick the question. Yeah.
Oh,
No
okay.
pressure.
Well, he's got this.
All right.
Great. First of all, thank you. Great talk. So you've thrown out a lot of names, some songs from the origins of rock and roll through the people who evolved it into punk and people who are performing present day. Since this is being recorded, if anyone wanted to go through and make a playlist of some of the artists or people you've been talking about, any other names or any other tracks you'd want to throw out to put on there?
We have playlists.
I mean, rock and roll is Spotify.
Yeah, if you go to Spotify, there's an I Made Rock and Roll channel, and if you go to the I Made Rock and Roll website, there's a page that has
It's on
all
our
of our,
About page.
on our About page, there are playlists from us on that page that you can check out that have just tons and tons and tons of artists from early rock and roll to now. Names that I know are on so many of them. Living Colour is a band that's on there. Definitely want to check out Living Colour. The Last Four is on there. Tracy Chapman is someone you want to pay attention to. Lenny Kravitz. There's just so many artists. Gosh, what was Thin Lizzy? Man, ooh, Thin Lizzy. I listen to Thin Lizzy all day, the day after. Yeah, TV on the radio. There are so many great bands to check out. So definitely go check it out.
What was that URL?
I Made Rock and Roll. I made rockinroll.com. So letter N. I made rockinroll.com. Check out the About page. There are some blog posts by some great writers in our community as well about their interaction with rock and roll music. And there's tons of playlists from some of us as well as some celebrities as well. So.
Hi, yeah, also thank you for putting this on. This is amazing. My question is, in the history of black artists who obviously had a lot of raw contract deals coming up, what do you do to make sure you keep ownership of your music? So what happens to them does not happen to you.
Not signed to a label.
I think releasing music today has become, it's a whole different base. Because you can, if I want to release an album or a song right now, I can. And I can just go on CD Baby or something like that, upload my track, record it at home. The access is different today. So it's a lot easier to own. But I think people are more educated too than they were back then. Because this is a narrative that's been out there for a while. Watch these
There you
contracts,
go.
make sure you're reading
Yes.
the fine print, all that stuff. Make sure you're getting a lawyer so you can understand that stuff that you don't understand. So I think the education is better, a lot better now than it was back then.
Definitely stay as independent as possible. But if you can build a team that you can trust, you can do a lot of great things. That's what I think now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been through it. Like, we talk about authorship and stuff, and I mentioned this before. I don't have the rights to any of those old bands that we just talked about. But I damn sure got control of all that Last Four stuff. You know what I mean? So please make sure you buy the Last Four album. And I'll definitely get a check off that. But I mean, I don't get that money anymore. You know what I'm saying? I don't see streaming money, man. You know what I mean? Somebody could sell one of our songs to a commercial. I wouldn't know who to call for a check. But now we know. We think a lot better. You know what I mean? You're so excited to get your music out, man. You know what I mean? When you're young and stupid and you could just burn CDs and you know what I mean, or whatever. You kind of have to really be on top of it, even with this internet stuff. Make sure, like, personally, man, like, thank God that I'm working with these dudes I'm working with now, because like we all decided before we did anything, before we posted any songs, we're gonna register our songs with ASCAP. We're gonna take care of our publishing and do all that stuff ourselves. So if somebody decides to steal our riff or whatever, we got our copyrights together, bro, it's here. You know what I mean? And that shit is tedious and it sucks. You know what I mean? I just wanna be the singer, man. You know what I mean? I just want to get on stage and throw down, dude. I want to write more songs and throw down. But you know what I mean? I want to post this because it's great. But I got to make sure I got our ASCAP together, and I got to, you know what I mean? Like all of it. We're always watching it. So I think the best thing you could do now, man, in terms of take care of yourself is thank God we got the internet now, man, because you can actually go and look stuff up yourself. You know, somebody could tell you something. Well, you know, standard contract is, Russell, it's 30% for the manager. That just makes sense, don't you think?
Speaking of that, 30%.
Well, I mean, it's 30%. I mean, look at what I do. I mean, I do all this. You know what I'm saying? That's how it used to be. Like, they just lie to you.
He's not lying. Listen.
They'll lie.
Show you how grimy this industry could be. When I was in college, I was in a acapella group, and we got presented with a contract, 30%. They said, no, we want 30% off the rip. So it's 5 of us in the group. They want 30%. They were going to front us, like the cost for recording and all that stuff, but we would have to reimburse them whatever they spent. So by the time we got done performing and splitting that amongst 5 people and then paying them back, we would have been in the red for about the first 3 or 4 years.
You're not making no money for yourself, bro.
Right. So, being an educated brother, I could read that contract, and I said, I'm not signing this garbage. And the first thing out of his mouth, well, we can find somebody else to replace you.
Do it.
That's what I said.
Go. Yeah, please, like for real, man. Like I have a similar story. You know what I mean? Like we were in Birdman, man. We like came out of the gate super hot. You know what I'm saying? And got picked up by a local promotion company that was doing all the big concerts. I don't know if they are still in existence anymore, but they were doing all the big shows. You know what I'm saying? And they wanted a little management wing, and they had a little management wing, and we were the first band signed to that. You know what I'm saying? We were just so happy to be able to go to a studio, an actual real studio, and record, and these folks were paying for it and all this stuff. Man, that CD sounded wonderful. It was great, but they didn't know shit about marketing. You know what I mean? They didn't know shit about promotion. They didn't know nothing about none of that. This little management wing. But we figured we're safe because we're under this umbrella, right? So at the very least, all we're thinking about is, man, please give us those shows. Let us open for such and such. Please. You know, we want all those opening slots so we can go sell our record. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work out that way, man. And like sometimes people just get really tired of you. So what you gotta do is just make your own noise, be in control of your own shit, and stay in control of it as long as you can. And if somebody really, really wants to deal with you and offer you a bag, then maybe you can get it. You know what I'm saying? But please maintain control of some sort. You have to have control as an artist.
All right, we got time for one more question. Who's got one? Somebody in the back? All right. Just stand up and yell.
Okay. Well, this has been super informative and educational, and I appreciate you all sharing your background. I'm looking forward to diving into each of you individually as artists. Kind of unrelated, related. You mentioned certain artists were seen as being in certain buckets when they create music. There's a lot of controversy around Cowboy Carter. Okay, I just kind of want to hear your thoughts, opinions, and responses to people who have tried to put Beyonce in a certain bucket, but she's just this amazing creative artist in her own right and kind of stepping over the boundaries, if you would. So what are your thoughts, opinions, and responses to those who think otherwise?
we made country music too. That's the next campaign.
That's the next festival, goddamn. Shake all this shit up.
The banjo was a black instrument.
Yeah. No, I feel like Beyonce should be able to do whatever the hell she wants to. You know what I mean? She's like one of the most popular people in the world. She's probably one of the 10 most famous people in the world. She should be able to do whatever the hell she wants to. You know what I'm saying? And it's not appropriation or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because she's from fucking Texas. Get over it. You know what I mean? Like, she grew up singing this shit. I guarantee it. You know what I mean? And the way the record like reads the narrative and pays homage to other, you know what I mean, artists and stuff, I think it's great. So, you know, people can be as mad as they want. No, but you know, we get mad. We got mad at Miley Cyrus for twerking. We get it. You know what I'm saying? We get it. Like, don't just come over here and be corny with it. But there's like nothing about Cowboy Carter that's corny. You know what I mean? It's like a great artistically done, sonically done, performed record. There's all kinds of shit on that record too. American Requiem is like the song of the year. Easy. You know what I'm saying? So like, no, leave Beyonce alone, jeez. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't, you know, get away with it. We just reclaiming it. This is a reclamation proclamation. That's it. This is a reclamation proclamation. We're not mad at you. We're not saying you can't do it no more. You know what I'm saying? We saying we did it first.
I do want to go on record saying that I take issue with Miley Cyrus twerking.
All right. Actual last question back here. And we're going to shut it down with this question, but everything you learned today, this experience, you came here for free, you better walk out of here buying the IMRR shirt. If they're going to say it, I am. And if you don't buy it walking out the door, you better buy that shit online. So don't walk out of here without a ticket. All right, last question over here.
Wait, Ryan, real quick. I was handed a note while we were sitting here. Until 10 p.m. tomorrow, if you use code CM, you can get an all-in $80 ticket, including fees. So, all-in $80, code is CM, open until 10 p.m. tomorrow. At IMadeRockandRoll.com.
Can they buy them here?
Oh yeah, you can. There's QR codes all around here. We got fee-free tickets, no fee-free tickets over there. Scan the QR codes.
All right, here we go.
Hi. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
For the most part. Hopefully. If you can't hear me, I'm Miracle.
Miracle.
Hello, what's up?
Hi.
Hi.
Oh hey.
I was born and raised in Indianapolis, and I have been into rock and roll in a variety of different genres since I was a kid and deemed the weird one. And so, I have always accepted that. And so, in accepting it at a young age, I also found that there was a festival called Afropunk, and that was something that I had always dreamed of going to, but I never had the funds to actually attend, and now here I am 24 years old, and we have I Made Rock and Roll in Indianapolis. So, with that being said, now that we have I Made Rock and Roll in Indianapolis, and this is under the assumption that this will become an annual event, do you ever think that you would collaborate with Afropunk, or have you guys heard of Afropunk before? That's been going on since 2005, or?
Oh yeah, we know about Afropunk for sure. That's like big bro and big sis. I would say early days, right? Like right now, that'd be like, I just dropped my first single and I'm trying to collab with Beyonce. You know? Like Afropunk is big time, right? Big time, and we look up to them. Absolutely, I think we're not trying to be the next Afropunk. I think we aspire to be considered at the same level as them. They're more in an alternative space, and I think we're really centering this on honoring the black artistry and authorship in rock and roll. Like that's the context in which this sits, and this is all a celebration of rock music, of black culture, and those two things are synonymous in this festival experience. So I think we're taking a little bit more of a targeted approach, specifically calling out that we made rock and roll and that we're a part of this origin story, we're a part of this culture. And if that leads down the road to a partnership with Afropunk, I won't go on the record and saying that we would do it, but we definitely want to be in association with them for sure.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Can we give it up for the panel?
I do have one more ticket to give out. One more ticket. This is another Elvis question because we're just attacking Elvis today. Elvis's voice is actually a mimic of another singer. Who is that singer? If you don't know, it's on our Instagram, so you can just keep scrolling and find it. No one knows?
I don't know.
Roy Hamilton. Look up Roy Hamilton, and you will not be able to tell the difference between his voice and Elvis's voice.
Right now.
Yeah.
See? See? Look it up right now, Ryan.
We'll give another one. Okay. Some people might get this easily because they've already been to one of our programs. Who is considered to be the person who coined the term "shut up"? Little Richard.
Yeah.
That's correct.
To get your ticket, you gotta say it like a no.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I feel so unnecessary.
All right. 45's got the event over at the Vogue, so we're going to shuffle out of here kind of quick. But thank you for being here. Come check us out next month and get that I May Rock and Roll ticket.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody. IMRR.com.